Hello everyone, welcome back to ClioVis's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be going over my Sunrise on the Reaping timeline, which is the new Hunger Games book. If you haven't already, I would definitely go and read it because there are a lot of spoilers up ahead. There's a lot of content that I don't really go into in this timeline, and also a lot of characters that show up that I don't mention here, so it's in your best interest to go ahead and read it because it's an amazing book. But we will go ahead and start. So also, please ignore these dates. We don't specifically know what timeline it is for the Hunger Games. We just know it's in the future. So for the sake of organization and just making it easy to follow, I put random dates. However, it does start on July 4th, which is Reaping Day and also Haymitch's birthday. This specific Hunger Games is the 50th Hunger Games, which is the second quarter quell. So this requires double the amount of tributes. So let's get into it. So first, Wyatt Kahlo and Woodbine Chance are both reaped. Woodbine attempts to flee, but he is shot dead on the spot by a peacekeeper. Haymitch's girlfriend, Lenore Dove, tries to protect Woodbine's body from the peacekeepers, along with Woodbine's mother. However, they get a little bit violent, and Haymitch tries to defend her, and then is forcibly chosen as Woodbine's replacement. He is illegally reaped because of this. Luella McCoy and Maisie Donner are the female tributes. Luella McCoy is just a little girl, and Maisie Donner is kind of the town priss, and she's kind of known as the mean girl. So whenever Haymitch is reaped, Lenore and him are both kind of in a state of shock. And however, they both know that they don't want to cry and show this sort of entertainment for the Capitol. So Lenore doesn't go to the goodbye room, and she doesn't give any sort of emotion, and Haymitch as well. However, they see each other whenever Haymitch is on the train, and so they kind of have this moment together and cry whenever he leaves. They're just thankful that the Capitol couldn't record their pain. So now moving on to the firework attack and Luella's death. So during the Capitol chariot rides, which is basically whenever they show all of the tributes, someone throws a firework near District 12's horses, and Luella dies in this crash. Haymitch grabs her body and runs her through the streets, cradling her, and he places her in front of President Snow's mansion, which just shows his act of defiance and protest against the games. So now they are going to the Tribute Center. So District 12 has no surviving victors, and they are just dismissed as the long shots. Because of this, the tribute who are assigned mentors from the previous games are Wyrus from District 3, who is a genius, and Mags from District 4. And Haymitch kind of adopts a defiant rascal persona that he puts on. But we get to see Mags and Wyrus and know a little bit more about their games in the book. So now, Haymitch meets BT, a victor from District 3, who is also very, very smart. BT's son, Ampert, is in the games as punishment from his rebellious crimes against the Capitol. And BT and Haymitch kind of have a conversation about breaking the arena. And additionally, District 12 joins an alliance with non-career districts calling themselves newcomers, and Ampert is leading this alliance. So now we're going on to the introduction of Lulu, and Lulu is basically a drugged body double of Luella. This is President Snow's way of frightening and threatening Haymitch. President Snow warns him about his rascal reputation and reminds him of his fate if he decides to rebel against the Capitol. So moving on, BT meets with Haymitch in the Tribute Development Center, and he visits him late at night to discuss his rebel plan. BT reveals to Haymitch that they're going to drown the arena, and before the power turns on, BT quickly disappears. So he explains the whole plan to Haymitch about how they're going to drown the arena. Now moving on to Haymitch's score. So during the Hunger Games, you have a training evaluation, And during this, whenever he's supposed to be evaluated, he instead talks to the game maker and shows an act of defiance. He talks about how he was illegally reaped and that nobody cares, and that he doesn't really care if he lives or dies, or the other tributes if they live or die. And this defiance leads him to receiving a 1 out of 12 from his training evaluation, which is basically unheard of. So, before Haymitch goes into the arena, Plutarch pulls him aside, and he arranges a phone call for Haymitch with Lenore Dove. They basically get a really good goodbye. He also figures out that Lenore's in prison. However, he knows that he probably will not be able to come back to her, so this is kind of their way of saying goodbye. This is Plutarch's way of getting Haymitch to trust him, and he admits that he's actually a rebel and gives him advice on specifically what to expect from the arena, and he also tells him how to drown the arena. But Haymitch is still very weary because he is a direct assistant of the capital. Let the games begin. So the tributes are sent up and the games begin in a lush and beautiful arena, but they figure out that it's filled with deadly flora and fauna. Because of the scenery, the tributes are stunned, but Haymitch uses this pause to reach the cornucopia, and he grabs a knife and a backpack. 18 of the 14 tributes are killed in the first minutes of the cornucopia, the bloodbath, and Haymitch flees the arena, and 30 tributes remain with it on the first day. So, just talking more about the arena, the deadly poisons in the air, water plants begin killing off the weaker tributes. Even Haymitch almost dies from the poisoned water, but he has an antidote in his backpack that he got from the cornucopia. The careers move to the mountain zone, and they start hunting the newcomers. So now we're going to be talking about the newcomers a little bit. So Lulu finds Haymitch, and they briefly travel together before she is killed by toxic pollen. Haymitch also meets Amber to sabotage the arena's infrastructure and to go along with his rebel plan. The explosion. Haymitch is able to sneak into a berm that reveals a utility ladder that runs down into the depths of the arena, and they plant the explosive in the underground channels, which triggers a flood because there is a huge water tank. However, the flood doesn't disable the arena and they fail. Instead, it releases genetically mutated mutts, and the mutts kill Ambert, and very brutally. Haymitch feels really bad about this because he promised BT that he wouldn't let his son die a painful death, but he was ate to the bone by these mutts. Haymitch is able to escape, but he is pretty injured. So the maze encounter. Haymitch doesn't give up on destroying the arena though, so he moves deeper into the woods. He's trying to figure out a way to not necessarily drown the arena, but a way to blow up the arena. Haymitch finds a looping maze that keeps returning him to the same clearing. On his way out, he's attacked by 3 careers and kills 2 with his knife, and then the third disarms him, and he is from District 1. And just before the career kills Haymitch, Maisley appears and shoots the career with her poisonous blowgun, and they agree to form an alliance. Moving on to the encounter with the game maker. So Maisley and Haymitch are just kind of talking about what has happened to them so far within the games, talking about who has died, etc. And then they encounter 2 careers, and while running away from them, they stumble upon 3 game makers. Because this infuriates Maisley, and she kills a game maker, and for a split second, an alliance forms with the careers because a career backed her up with her plan to kill a game maker. However, this shortly follows her death because of her rebellion. Haymitch managed to find the arena's power source, and he plans to destroy it. Maisley leaves him to explore it, but she is then attacked by mutts. Maisley is killed by mutt birds that are obviously targeted because it's a punishment for her killing a game maker. Haymitch holds on to her hand as she dies, and he is visibly shaken. Whenever they met with each other, they kind of adopted this brother-sister companionship, and so it was like he was losing his sister. Moving on to the last newcomer. So Haymitch is able to find Welly, who is just a little girl, and it isn't long before Silka, who was one of the female tributes from District 1, kills Welly. And now comes the final battle. So Haymitch and Silka have a brutal face-off. Silka throws her axe attempting to kill Haymitch, but it bounces off the arena's force field, which is the power source that he found in the beginning, and it comes back and kills her. Haymitch is really injured and he collapses. However, he is crowned the victor. He wakes up in the capital and he realizes that the capital erased all signs of rebellion within the games, with Ampert's death, the Mutts, the game makers, the force field sabotage, and he just realizes how much the games has been censored, and now he is on his way home. Lastly, death outside of the arena. Because of Haymitch's defiance against the capital, his house erupts in flames, killing both his mother and his brother Sid. Haymitch also meets Lenore in a secluded meadow and they have a moment of celebration. However, Snow laced a red gumdrop with poison that kills her. Lenore Dove then dies in Haymitch's arms after telling him to stop more sunrises on the reaping. This is just a quick summary of what happened in the book. However, there are so many amazing details, and Suzanne Collins did an amazing job of telling Haymitch's story. So I really recommend that you go and read it yourself. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.